If there were a game to perfectly capture the human psyche as it navigates the 1895 Louisiana bayou, it would be Hunt Showdown. Picking up this game is a gateway to unlocking the mysteries of the South American bog, where tracking down various monstrosities just to give them a hearty smack is the goal of many a player. Alternatively, you could nab yourself a spyglass and watch the potato-textured fresh and still reenact scenes from King Kong. The initial learning curve might as well have you scrambling away from clues to avoid getting munched, but the point is that it doesn't have to be as bad as Andy Serkis makes it out to be. For all the unbridled nonsense Hunt chucks at you comes the decision for hunters to take up equally deranged loadouts and start throwing stuff back. In this vid I'll be your guide to invoking the powers of the average Florida man while keeping relatively level-headed advice in mind. I'll also try to portray myself as a bloke who, after quite a few hours of hunt, doesn't get heart palpitations the moment they spot the local wildlife.
Or perhaps fuck that.
Hunt has you rolling in the deep, dark and dainty locations of the swamp in search for hellish bounty targets, each one a phobia waiting to be conquered. To find and teach these abominations about the indomitable human spirit, hunters have to parade the map with darksight in search for clues. Each clue reveals the locations where the boss isn't hanging out, slowly homing in on the target until you finish up the third clue, after which you get an X marks the spot on your map. Darksight is a bit like the Swiss Army knife of Floridian superpowers. It doesn't just find holes in the ground, it can also be used to tell if someone has already engaged with the boss within a 50-meter range from the lair itself. If there aren't any folks nearby, or once you feel like the environment is as safe as a zombified ghost town can get, the boss is up for grabs. These bounty targets seem quite dangerous to the uninitiated.
But we are initiated.
Under the right circumstances, bosses can be lethal. Otherwise, the devs were kind enough to stick in enough mechanics for players to take them down with relative ease. I realize it might be a bit try-hard to make off-brand names for each big bad, but I'm going to do it anyway. The current bounty targets in Hunt range between a pig-headed man, a giant enemy spider, James McKenzie, that bug ninja bloke from Naruto, and the newest addition to Hunt, Louisiana's smallest alligator. Once you have taken one of these peeps out, then you can banish them back to where they belong. 3 long minutes after tabbing out to watch YouTube, the banish will be complete, and the bounty can be extracted. The hard part is getting out after players have made their way to the lair. Everyone will want a piece of you as the bounty is more or less the win condition of the game, so be prepared to show down with the remaining folks on the map. Any experience in battle royales or extraction shooters will tell you that this whole process doesn't always play out smoothly. Hunt is unforgiving, but it's easy to forget that you don't have to suffer alone. You can pick up to 2 other folks to join you if you find similarly minded people, or click the random teammate button.
Are you gonna ready up?
One sec, I think I've just been drugged by Geralt of Rivia.
That injection knocked your teeth in real good, didn't it?
So we've established that others like money as much as you do, and might just shoot you to get it. The creatures of the swamp, however, share no such values. They're just hungry. The AI in Hunt has never been the main health concern, but if you're in the middle of a firefight and there's a walking beehive beating on you from behind, it's enough of a reason to turn around. From basic zombie grunts to the bloated meathead, hunters will have to decide whether to stealth past AI or going guns blazing. As an example, shooting an immolator is safer, but it's also quite loud. Some enemies also have resistances, so if you plan to melee everything to conserve ammo or make less noise, then it's more a game of rock, paper, go fuck yourself. Balancing your loadouts can be a great way to avoid mishaps in the field or to work alongside the ever-present importance of sound. The snapping of a twig is all it takes for someone or something to know your exact position, and to make matters worse, most, if not all of the creatures in Hunt Showdown are quite proud of themselves when they find a little human making noise. Many of these sound traps can carry from compound to compound, meaning hunters in the vicinity can choose to temporarily forego their main objective, in favour of blowing your head off instead. And why wouldn't you? Showing other players your nonsensical loadout is half the fun of Hunt. PvE isn't everything, there's only so many times you can pretend to one-punch a meathead before it gets boring.
I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned.
Oh, really?
There weren't many machine guns lying around back in the day, and it shows. The vast majority of weapons have measly RPM. It kind of explains why that guy sitting in the bush for 15 minutes hasn't shot at you yet. If he misses, it's going to be half a second of his life to line up another one. Ignoring the fictional horror setting and that time of year when the spider puts on his Christmas socks, the Hunt team remains committed to keeping the environmental setting and weaponry of the late 1800s relatively accurate. That's because if they don't, this man would hunt down their families. It's also because there's a nice selection of guns to pick out from the time period. Rifles, shotguns, crossbows, whatever this thing is, as long as you're not strapped for hunt dollars, the market is perfectly happy with giving you any variation of forgotten war crime available. Despite the slower fire rate of the weapons from what we're used to in modern shooters, fights can end quickly under the guidance of a sneaky little ambush or a well-placed shot. If you listen not so carefully, you'll hear signs of the dev team sound designing all over the place. The headshot brings a meaty crunch with every bullet, acting as the great equalizer of the bayou, even those from low-caliber weapons or projectiles, which means that the most juiced-up hunter in Louisiana history can still die to a wayward dink. Using the standard weapon slots isn't the only way to unleash your inner madman. Tools and the aptly named consumables have a part to play in your arsenal too. Tools are one of the best ways to navigate all the problems mobs present, and some of the best advice I can give is to grab a melee weapon and a medkit for every mission. Consumables are less mandatory but add even more versatility and firepower to your options. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a Pokemon gym leader or strapping so many dynamite sticks together that Christopher Nolan appears to watch the explosion, then you'll feel right at home. Of course, you're not going to be running half-baked combinations all the time. One of Hunt's biggest strengths is that your cheapskate pea shooter has a chance against $1,000 of hillbilly engineering. Luckily, you begin with at least a couple of functioning guns to start you off.
I asked you if you could kill me a few times. I have micro and...
I couldn't give a tinker's fig.
Recruiting your first white shirt is daunting, and if you've already been hunt-pilled, I'm sure you have quite stark memories of your first games. You begin matchmaking in the beginner's queue, a special place for the new players where everyone is either dying horribly to AI or sitting in a bush too scared to move. No matter how successful or unsuccessful your hunt was, you'll eventually come across a whole bunch of stuff on the UI telling you that you've done something right. These simple unlocks are the first main source of progression in Hunt. The second, hunters themselves. Once you have bought a hunter, it's time to emulate life in the hellscape that is Hunt Showdown. Gaining XP by doing practically anything will let you buy traits post-mission, some of them being quite niche and others teetering on must-pick status. What's stopping a skilled player from steamrolling every lobby with a fully perked up cowboy? Unsurprisingly, the answer is death. If you fully die in a match, you and your Hail Zone killstreak Mosin Nagant will be left in the mud. Losing a hunter you've won with can be a bit draining, and I wouldn't blame you if you started to get a bit emotional. Having a cheeky cry can make things a bit hard to see. It's also the only reason I would believe for someone to click the multiple buttons it takes to pre-stage, because if you do, you lose all your unlocks too. Sometimes the mind just gets trapped in an endless cycle of repetition. In my case, it's spending $200 every game for an uninterrupted beeline melee charge towards the nearest enemy hunter. Of all the games I've played where fucking around is commonplace, Hunt is the one I least expected to have so many ways to goof off on. Custom ammo combinations, barrel traps, proximity chat, popping the kneecaps off every zombie in a compound and watching them waddle after enemy hunters. Matchmaking is pretty good at making sure you're in the right skill grouping or kindergarten class. The so-called stars range from 1 to 6, 1 being the lowest and 6 being the highest. It just so happens that balancing trying to win and doing unhinged acts usually places me around the 3 to 4 star bracket. I'm perfectly comfortable with this since high MMR is like playing a game at 2 AM and expecting things to play out normally. Trust me when I say that the extreme highs and lows of MMR are more cursed than the Hunt team's monster design. Outside of Bounty Hunt, where all the important stuff happens, things can get a bit bloated. You'll have to fend off notifications, challenges, book of monster this, book of weapons that, fully voiced lore slices, battle passes and convoluted event trait explanations, this tribute page which I continually forget exists, and an entirely different, less advertised game mode where you gather the energies of the universe against other solos. Once you actually load in, you'll be met with the ambient sounds of the swamp, experiencing the bulk of sound design in a game that fully embraces its unique concept and setting. It's crazy to me to think that after 5 years, the worst thing to happen in Hunt Showdown is the introduction of concertina wire.
Fuck you! I hope your whole family has a nice Christmas!
Hunt most certainly deserves a success for its consistency, and for giving folks like me a chance to lob tomahawks at the guy who has shot his sniper once in 40 minutes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the swamps.
You fucked us! What do you think? Get off this game with these weapons!